Welcome to Ripple Effects, Travelers with Disabilities Abroad, brought to you by the National Clearinghouse on Disability and Exchange, a project sponsored by the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs and administered by Mobility International USA. We know that international exchange can influence personal and professional development. It can enhance one's confidence and skill sets, broaden one's perspective, and shape one's educational path. It can also influence job choices and career opportunities. Let's find out how. For this season of Ripple Effects, we hear the stories of international exchange alumni with disabilities and how their programs relate to their careers. This is part of a new initiative from the Clearinghouse called #LifeAfterExchange. I'm Justin Harford, a project coordinator with Mobility International USA and your host for Ripple Effects. From an early age, Jessica Queener learned about the importance of self-advocacy for achieving her goals. Even before we used the language of self-determination, Jessica's parents understood how important it was for their daughter, who is hard of hearing, to take an active role in her education. Now, Jessica has made her career in the world of youth transitions, establishing better collaboration and communication between organizations involved in work preparation systems, so that the next generation of youth with disabilities can achieve its goals. A high point of her transition from college to career was the semester she spent in 1999 as a college student in Wales. We were lucky to catch up with Jessica on her busy schedule to learn how her international exchange changed her life and continues to resonate in her career 20 years later. We first discussed that early history, being raised as a child of parents who wanted the best for their daughter and who raised her to be a self-advocate.
I did have that. I was very involved with my teachers and talking about my disability with them. And I guess I should disclose that I have a hearing loss and I have a cochlear implant now. But when I was young, I was diagnosed with a severe to profound hearing loss and wore hearing aids. And then when I was in the classroom, I also had a telex, which was kind of like at the time, a modern day Walkman, but now we have iPods and iPhones and people wear things, wires going up to their ears, but the teacher would wear a microphone in the classroom. And so I also had speech therapy, so I would also be pulled out for special education related services that I needed. So I was very involved in that sense. So from an early age, my parents sat me down and talked to me about my disability and the importance of advocating for my needs. And back in those days, we didn't call it self-advocacy, and we didn't call those types of skills that my parents were teaching me self-determination, but that's a lot of what my parents were doing with me at a very young age, as early as kindergarten. So I would always go in on the first day of school and talk to my teachers about my disability.
And after she started school, she became active with both her student community as well as her town at large.
My mom at the time was very involved in starting her own career, and she was an RN, and so she was working at a hospital and had extremely long hours. And so while she was working, my dad took me to all of these political events and fundraisers and rallies and reception. So at a very young age, I met Al Gore when he was running for the U.S. Senate in 1984. So there's a picture of my dad and Al Gore, a very young Al Gore and a very young myself together in a photo. And so I began at a very young age meeting all kinds of people, shaking hands, handing out flyers, bumper stickers, and I just absolutely loved it. Now, my very first campaign was when I was 14 years old, and it was a Senate campaign that I worked on, and I absolutely loved it because of the interest in my early years. So I did whatever the office manager told me to do. If she needed me to go on game day, because in Tennessee, the SEC football is huge, I would hand out bumper stickers, pamphlets, talk to people, ask them for their vote for my particular candidate that I was campaigning for. But that whole experience was just amazing in the sense that I got to meet a lot of other young people who were a little bit older, who were in college, but were very politically active. And I also got to meet the candidate as well, and just had a whole array of like early work experiences, but it was in my area of interest, so it was very exciting. There was always something going on. There was never a dull day on a campaign, so there was always something happening. So from that experience, I volunteered for more political campaigns, but like local campaigns, state and national national campaigns, and then I also got involved in my national party that I was working for, particularly for different candidates for. So I just became more and more involved, and that led me to becoming more and more involved in my high school. So really focusing on being involved in student government and any other type of leadership opportunities that I could get my hands on. And so from there, that led me to applying for internship opportunities. And I called my local congressman's office in the junior year of my high school career and asked for an internship opportunity because I just had all this drive and passion, and I wanted to keep doing it, and I wanted to do it while I was in high school. I didn't want to wait.
When Jessica went to college, she continued to branch out and try new things, such as, for example, her semester that she spent in Wales in 1999.
So when I was in college, it was my junior year, and it was the fall of 1999. I applied for the semester in Wales program at the University of Tennessee, and it was always a dream of mine to go overseas. And so I selected Wales because my mother's side of the family is from there. And so I wanted to learn more about their culture and their history. And as a political science major, big surprise there given all my history about political campaigns, I was very interested in international relations, learning more about international relations in the context of political science. So the program offered coursework in this area, so I was very interested. On another level, I selected Wales because I knew people spoke English, and as a person with a severe to profound hearing loss and wore hearing aids and relied heavily on lip reading, I wanted to be sure I could be successful in my new environment. However, I didn't think language would be a barrier because everyone spoke English, but due to the accents and how people form their words, lip reading didn't come as easily to me in Wales as it did in the United States. So at the University of Wales at Swansea, where I was, they did not have a disability services office on campus like they did here in the States. So I had to meet with my program coordinator who was overseeing the semester in Wales program at Swansea and explain to her my disability and how that was impacting me in the classroom and what I needed as accommodation so I can be successful in the study abroad environment in the classroom. And so thankfully, my coordinator was very accommodating and was willing to work with me. And so she met with my professors one-on-one and talked to them and just explained the situation. And everybody was very understanding, and they worked with me to get the accommodations I needed, such as a note taker, because they had these huge lecture halls and there was no back and forth interaction with the students. So you just had to go in and listen for 2 to 3 hours on a lecture. So I'd be so focused in trying to understand the accent and understand what words they're saying that I couldn't have time to write everything down. So, so there were some differences between that I found from studying in the United States and having the study abroad experience in Wales. But the program itself, other than that, it was amazing. I went with 25 other students from the university and one professor. So we had classes 3 days a week during the week, and so we had really long weekends to travel to other parts of Europe. So I got to go to France, England, Scotland, Ireland, and Italy. And to this day, I still remain in touch with my classmates. I highly recommend traveling overseas. I loved it.
In addition to her hearing loss, Jessica also had another disability experience that she had to confront while abroad in Swansea, Wales.
Just to give you some context, when I was young, I was diagnosed as having a panic disorder with agoraphobia. And so what that means is if I had a panic attack somewhere, then I would not want to go to the place where I had my panic attack. So eventually it just gets to the point where you just don't want to leave your house because you're afraid that you'll have a panic attack somewhere, and it'll be embarrassing, and it'll happen in front of all these people, and there's not going to be anyone that will be able to help you. So I was very nervous about leaving my campus and my support system and having a major panic attack overseas and not having someone over there to talk to. However, one of the things that provided me great comfort was that knowing that I was traveling over there with 24 other students who were from my campus and my university, and we all met before we went over there. And then we also had a professor that was traveling with us. It was nice to know that I had a group of people that I could talk to if I needed it, and if I needed to talk to my professor. And I became friends with many of the students and shared my anxieties with them and the people that I became close with. And so that lessened. So my anxiety about that lessened the longer I was over there. And I did have a couple of panic attacks while I was there, but I was fine because I had developed or created my own support network.
The experience of meeting people from a variety of different backgrounds has stood out to Jessica as a high point from her international exchange.
You met so many people when you're traveling, and even when it's not in an structured environment, you're meeting people constantly when you're traveling in restaurants and places because they hear the American accent and people just want to talk to you because they want to know where you're from and what you're doing and what brought you here. So, you just became immersed in so many different cultures and interests because people were very interested in learning about you and you wanted to learn about them. And I also met so many Americans who were traveling as well. So when I came back to the States, it just gave me a greater appreciation. I know that's kind of a cliche, everybody says that, but it's really true. It does give you a greater appreciation of different cultures, of different people from different backgrounds, and appreciating and recognizing that the world is much bigger than the world that you live in, and taking into account of other people's experiences and understanding the context in which they were raised and why they think the way they think. And especially in the classroom environment when you're doing a lot of debates and especially in my area of study, you're always doing a lot of debates back and forth and thinking about different issues, you come back with a greater appreciation of why people think the way they think and more respect for why people think the way they think. So I really enjoyed my time, and my love for going over to Wales. To this day, I love to travel, and whether it's in the United States or if it's overseas, I find immense joy in traveling and meeting new people and seeing new cultures and learning about different things that makes that particular country or state unique.
And she's had many opportunities to put this experience to work in her career. For example, while working for the Youth Transitions Collaborative, she hosted various delegations through the International Visitor Leadership Program, IVLP, sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. This connection came through Judy Heumann, a longtime disability activist.
In my previous role in working with the Youth Transitions Collaborative, which was a collaborative of 50 organizations that serve young people with disabilities transitioning from high school to post-secondary life. That means education, employment, or independent living. We met with delegations from Sweden, the Ukraine, Venezuela, and delegations from the Middle East. So they met with us to get kind of a national perspective, and they met a lot of other national organizations as well, and they traveled to other states, but they were there specifically to learn about how we collaborated with each other, because so many times national organizations, especially organizations that are involved in the same work, we get into silos and we don't communicate with each other. We don't know what each other is doing, even though we're serving the same population of students. So the whole idea of the Youth Transition Collaborative is that we would share our information and resources with each other and to the public, and that we work together better when we all communicate with each other and collaborate with each other. So that's what we would share to the international delegations when they came to visit us.
And during those interactions, Jessica Queener drew from her international exchange in Swansea, Wales.
I think one thing that I learned in Wales that really helped me have conversations along with my colleagues with these international delegations that we've been very blessed to have met with was allowing time for the conversations to take place. You know, we move in such a fast-paced society. We want it quickly and we want it now. And a lot of cultures, in several cultures, you kind of have to take your time, have conversations, think about things and reflect. And so when we met with them, we wanted to ensure that we really had the time to meet and have a discussion and really have a conversation back and forth so that we can learn just as much as they're learning, that it's not something that we're just, snapping our fingers and saying, okay, we've done this, check this off the list and move on.
You don't have to be planning a career as a diplomat for an international exchange to be impactful. Jessica Queener finds benefit from her international exchange every time she interacts with people from different backgrounds or ways of thinking, something which happens quite often in her line of work. Finally, before we conclude, I would like to take the opportunity to encourage you to start thinking about your own international exchange plans. Take a look at our resources to get an idea of how you will make your mark on the world and how the world will make its mark on you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes and consider sharing us with your networks. Also, let us know what you think at Twitter @MobilityINTL or Facebook, Mobility International USA, using the hashtag LifeAfterExchange. And to learn more about hashtag LifeAfterExchange, go to miusa.org.